All right, good evening. Everybody ready? As ready as we're going to be? What session number are we up to? Wow, Jeff, you're right on it, aren't you? Welcome to session number 6 of the Citizens Leadership Institute. Tonight we get to hear from a little bit of law and order, as I like to say. Dun, dun, I need you to do that. Dun, dun. Oh, forget it. Can't say I didn't try. We're going to hear a little bit from animal control, which falls under the police department, and we're very lucky to have our new police chief with us tonight. He's going to tell you a little bit about what he's learned in the last couple months. We also will hear from our municipal court, so our judges are right there in the back, and they will tell you what goes on right here across the way. And then we will finish up with revenue development. As I had mentioned to you previous, Fox Young, who runs that particular division of the city, was ill the night he was supposed to present, so we kind of ran through his presentation really quickly. Well, we're going to get a chance to actually hear him do it in full tonight, so we should be able to handle that. Now, a couple of things that everybody should be aware of, as you know, up to this point. One of the requirements, and of course I use that term very, very loosely, one of the suggestions and recommendations we have of all of our CLI students is to attend a city council meeting and a planning and zoning meeting at least sometime during the course of the course, during the 4 months that we're going through our sessions. These are the next meetings set up for city council and for planning and zoning. I have it printed out over here. You can pick it up if you'd like. Basically, remember, the city council meets on the first and third Tuesdays of every month, and then usually has a work session on the Monday before that. That does not happen all year round. Sometimes they take a week off in the summer, or they might take a week off around the holidays. But right now, they're set to meet in 3 weeks, actually, on the 4th and 5th of April. There will be very interesting meetings, to say the least. That's one of the reasons why we will also take a couple of weeks off, because of the way the schedule kind of, and the calendar kind of worked out. But those are the next 4 sets of meetings for the council. If you can attend one of those, that would be very, very cool. Either that May 3rd or May 17th meeting will be graduation. And that means everybody gets to come back, we get pictures taken, you get your shirt, all that kind of fun stuff. So be aware of that. All of these meetings, remember, are live streamed. If you have cable TV and you still get a channel 11, you can actually watch it there. But of course, you can go to the city website, apachejunction.az.gov, G-O-V/live stream, to watch what we're showing on channel 11, which would be the meetings when they're supposed to take place. All right. 2 more sessions after tonight, April 13th and April 27th. So try to make sure you have those on your calendar, like I said, and then in May we will do graduation. Okay, I wanted to put this up here so before the end of the night I will remind you of a couple of big events that are coming up in the city in April. One of them is Earth Day, which is on April 23rd, but we'll get to that. All right, now then, let's get us started. We get to start with what I would probably tell you is the most supported area of the city by its city residents than any other area in the city. Am I wrong? Probably not. This town loves its animals. It is absolutely amazing what kind of support this particular organization gets. It is pretty standard in most municipal or county governments in Maricopa. It is done pretty much by Maricopa County, although the city of Mesa has its own animal control. Pinal County also has its animal control, but the city of Apache Junction has had one as well, and you're going to hear all about it from the guru of the Paws and Claws Center, Lori Erlinson, right there. Go ahead, Lori.
Am I just running this with the arrows?
Yes.
Where's my technical person?
Where's Jen?
Yeah. Hi there. My name's Lori. I'm the shelter supervisor over at Animal Control, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about who we are and what we do down at the shelter. Am I close enough here on the mic? I think so. Can you guys hear me okay? First thing he told me was, stay close to the mic, so I'm going to try to stay where I'm supposed to stay. I've been the supervisor down at the shelter for about 6 years. My background is actually in veterinary medicine, so prior to coming over to the city, I was a practice manager at a surgical referral hospital for about 13 years. I'm a CVT, which is a certified veterinary technician, and I do maintain my licensure in that. So I loved working in the veterinary side for almost 20 years, but coming over to the shelter side has been really fabulous. You know, in the veterinary world, you're working with owned animals. They're coming in with their people. We get to work with animals that are really, they need us. And so it's really been rewarding. It's challenging. It's a roller coaster, but it's really rewarding, and I love it. And we've got great staff down there that are also wonderful. Oh, I went the right way. The first button push is always scary. So some of you may know where we are down there. We're located down on Baseline Road. We're on Baseline between Idaho and Tomahawk. I say we're between the Public Works Division and the city dump. So we're right out there on the edge of town, but that's because we're noisy, and sometimes we're a bit smelly, so I think that's why they keep us out there. We're at the shelter 7 days a week, of course, caring for the animals. We're always there. I've got staff members there 7 days a week, but we're open to the public Tuesday through Saturday from 9 to 3. But we're there every day feeding and caring for everybody. We currently have 5 full-time kennel assistants on staff. Our kennel staff is really jack of all trades. We're a small shelter and a small group of staff, and so we do everything there, from the morning cleaning, the feeding, the intakes of the animals, sanitizing the kennels. Then we're doing adoption counseling. We're entering data into our computer software system, doing behavior assessments on the animals, meet and greets. They really do it all. There's not something that is just one person's job, so they're a hardworking crew. We've seen such growth, I would say, in Apache Junction over the past year, and of course there's huge growth coming up. And so we've seen fit to add another full-time person. So I'm actually in process of hiring our 6th full-time, which will be a new thing for us, and we're really excited about that. Because things are really growing, and our intakes are growing, and that's kind of valley-wide, but we're going to be ready for it. So the Apache Junction Police Department has 2 animal control officers, Officer Casey Sheehan and Brian Lawson, and they work schedules such that there is an officer on every day of the week. On after hours or during busy times, park rangers will sometimes assist with animal control, picking up strays at large, helping with calls as well. But we do have an ACO on every day, and they work to respond to citizen calls for cruelty cases, dog at large. They do respond to bites, any kind of concerns within the city for hoarding situations, that sort of thing. They also issue kennel permits, and then they also educate the public on local animal laws and statutes that they need to know about. So our shelter, as it is right now, can comfortably house about 40 dogs. You can see here we have just the one wing of the shelter. A few years ago, we got new doors put up, which are much clearer and allow the animals to have a little better visual there. You can see the glass doors. So we look a lot cleaner, and it's nice for the animals, and the public can see the animals better, too. If you'd been down to the shelter years ago, it was a little darker back there. But we just have the one wing there, and you can see that, you might see that yellow caution-looking tape there. What that is really, it's just a dividing line. We have the front half of the shelter is the area where the public can visit. Those are animals that are available for adoption, or they're on stray hold, and someone might be coming in looking for their dog. Anything behind that line then is where we would house our bite quarantines or animals that are on a confiscate hold for other variety of reasons, and we don't want the public to have access to that. We do get other critters into the shelter. We don't like that because we aren't really set up for that, but we have some great local groups that we work with wildlife rescues. These desert tortoises especially, we see them a lot. We got one in today, and they are escape artists. If you follow any of the local discussion and chat pages, you probably see once a week there's a tortoise on the run. And so they often come in to the shelter. They're very destructive because they want out. But we have a great relationship with Holdfast Reptiles up on Ironwood, We can call them up and say, hey, can you take a tortoise? And they will, and we're happy for that because those guys are, they're surprisingly fast. We also intake sometimes unusual cases. We had one last year, actually pretty notable. It was a cruelty hoarding situation, and it was the biggest one I'd ever seen. We took in almost 300 animals from that case. Now, about a dozen of those were dogs and cats. The rest of them were reptiles and rats. And so again, we were incredibly thankful for our partnerships with rescue groups that could come in and take these animals, because that's a lot of rats. Our outside area of the shelter, we have a large play yard area in the back. It's divided out. You can see in the photo there's a couple of kennels there. It's divided out where the dogs can go out multiples at a time and have individual kennels to get some outside time. We also use that area. You see Alice and Melissa there are doing some behavior testing out there. We use that for our behavior assessments. We can get dogs out to run and play ball a little bit. It's a great place for our volunteers to take the dogs out for some socializing. And then it's a great place for the meet and greets. People come down, they want to meet a dog for adoption, they can go out to the play yard area there. And not to forget about the cats. We have a cat room. A few years ago, this area where the cat room was built was really nothing. It was just kind of an open space in the shelter. It was kind of collecting junk, really. And a few years back, one of our volunteers, her organization, or her community that she lives in, held a big fundraising gala. And she was on the board and was able to choose that year who the funds went to for the fundraiser. She, of course, chose the shelter, and she's one of our big cat volunteers and cat fosters. They raised $60,000 for the shelter at that event. And so the first thing we did was build her a free-roaming cat room, and it's been fantastic. The public loves it. They can come down, hang out in the room. The cats are free-roaming. They can interact with them. It's really valuable during kitten season, which is coming up here probably in the next 6 weeks or so. We call it kitten season. We get a large influx of pregnant mamas and litters of kittens at that time, but it's a great room because the kittens can go in there and hang out, and it's increased adoptions for us on cats. People love to interact with them. So that room's been really wonderful for us. Along that subject of cats, one of our frequently asked questions at the shelter is, what can I do about feral cats in my community? We get calls probably daily, people wanting to know, what can I do? These cats are all over, they're peeing in my garden, what can I do about them? So cats are considered free roam animals in the city, and what that means is there's no laws about keeping your cat in your yard. They can roam where they want. Our officers don't pick up cats. Citizens are allowed to trap cats on their property, so you could set, like you see in the photo there, a live trap, or a humane trap as it's called, and you can trap cats on your own property. You can bring them into the shelter. We don't have a great outlet for feral cats. Cats that come in that are maybe somebody's indoor-outdoor cat and they're friendly, they'll hang out on a stray hold in the shelter. Unfortunately, feral cats, they don't want to be around people. And they don't want to be in a kennel, and so there really isn't an outlet for them. They are often humanely euthanized, but that's just the best thing for them. We really encourage people to explore other options. NACA actually just this past year put out a statement, and NACA is the National Animal Control Association, put out a statement on feral community cats, and they said that because of the large influx of cats coming into shelters, their recommendation was that except in cases of illness or injury, cats should not be trapped and brought into shelters. They should be allowed to live in the community. And then the solution to that, of course, is to encourage trap, neuter, release programs, where people will go out, trap the animals, get them spayed and neutered, and then re-release them back into their community. They can live out their life. They do a little ear tip on the ear. You're smiling, you've seen that before. So that you can identify a cat roaming around. If that ear is tipped, you know it's already been fixed. You can let it live its life. It's not making any more kittens. And so that's really the best solution. We don't have a trap, neuter, release program at the shelter, but we do have a great working relationship with Pinal County Animal Control, and they do often get grants for the TNR program. So because Apache Junction is in Pinal County, that still counts, so we can refer citizens to them to use that TNR program when necessary for their community. When an animal does come in to the shelter as a stray, the first thing that happens is we'll place them on a stray hold. It's either a 3-day or a 5-business-day stray hold. So when a dog comes in and we scan it for a microchip, first thing, if there's no microchip, no identification, the dog is placed on a 3-day hold. If there is identification, it's a 5-day hold. And that allows time for the owner to come forward. In the meantime, we share that photo out on our site, and social media has really become our biggest asset for getting lost dogs and owners back together. If you follow any of the local pages, you probably see that shared out. You can see by some of these, we have thousands of people that are sharing and putting this out there. So we're very well shared on social media, and really, if you're looking for your dog, you're going to find it within that day. Really, we find that if someone's looking, we match them up pretty quickly. So for all the downsides of social media, this is one of the upsides that has really been helpful for us. So once a dog, the hold time is up, if no owner has come forward, we will go ahead and evaluate that dog. We'll do some behavior assessments on it, and then if it's appropriate, we'll make that dog available for adoption, dog or cat, they both get assessed. And our adoptions always include a spay and neuter, up-to-date vaccines, and then a microchip. We always spay and neuter. Nothing leaves the building without being fixed because, of course, our whole goal as animal control is to decrease the overpopulation of the pets. Another thing you may have seen if you've ever been to our shelter, you've probably seen our very full donation wagon. As you alluded to before, we are well loved in the community, and we're constantly receiving donations. This isn't an exaggeration or just a holiday thing. Our donation wagon is always full. In fact, we never have had to purchase food for the dogs or cats. All our food is donated. So that's never an expense that we have to have. So much so, in fact, that we have, you can see on the photo there, the wall there with the food on that, we have a food bank for people. We have enough extra that we're able to share with the community. So if someone is having trouble making ends meet that month, they need some dog or cat food, come on down, we can help them out. We'll provide food. And it's a way that we can help the community and also help them keep their animals in their home. You know, if it's a struggle, we can help you out. We'll provide the food. That way you can keep your animal in your home. Another service we offer at the shelter is the MASH vet, Dr. Newfield. She's been coming for many, many years, and she's very busy. If you've ever driven by on a Tuesday, you see a long line of people out waiting for her. Dr. Newfield provides a low-cost spay and neuter and vaccine clinic for the public. She also does all the spays and neuters for our shelter animals. So every Tuesday she's there, and we keep her very busy. Yeah, it's a great service. The community really loves her. We also have a bunch of great volunteers. Our volunteers at the shelter help with adoption events, bathing dirty puppies. They help with grooming. They do socializing with the animals. We have some volunteers who like to come and actually interact with the public and show animals for adoption and kind of do that adoption counseling. We've got some volunteers that just want to come in the morning and help us clean and scoop litter boxes, and that's fabulous because not everybody wants to do the dirty work, but we've got a volunteer every day of the week down there doing the work with us, and we couldn't do it without them. I think we're outnumbered 3-to-1 volunteers to staff, so they're really fantastic. And another thing we love to do and what the volunteers love to do is community events. One of the favorites being the Holiday Lights Parade. I've got a picture there of a couple of us down at the parade. We love to do that every year, go out to the local businesses. We've been out to Shoppers Supply hosts us. They love to have us down there. They're very generous. In fact, every year Shoppers Supply puts up a donation tree for us as well in their lobby, and we get a lot of donations from them. So we've got some great community businesses that like to host us. We'll be at the Earth Day event, of course, end of April. We look forward to that one. That's a great event. Something relatively new at the shelter, it's a few years old now. It's called Saving Paws Rehabilitation Fund. What Saving Paws is, it's a 501c3 that was created by a couple of our longtime volunteers. Paige and Lori, there you see in the picture next to one of the firemen. They got together back in 2019 and they created this 501c3 and they fundraise for the animals for the medical expenses. Our city budget is small for medical expenses. This has been an incredible way to make make it possible for us to save more animals, and animals that might otherwise not be adoptable. They come in injured, hit by a car, they've got parvo. No questions asked. I call them up and say, hey, we're headed to the vet. Great, they pay the bill. They've been fabulous. They fundraise through some really cool things. They do raffle baskets seasonally. They go to all the events in the community and they have raffle baskets. They offer a kennel sponsorship. You can see the Shopper's Supply picture there on the kennel. You can come down and sponsor a kennel for a monthly donation, and you get a plaque on the kennel with your business name, or maybe you want to do it in honor of a pet that you had. So that's a great fundraiser too. All of the money that's raised goes directly to pay for the medical expenses of the shelter animals. So here's just a couple pictures. That's their website there, savingpawsrehab.com, if you're interested in just learning about them. A couple of the photos here, we've got Rio there in the middle with the big blue collar. He actually, a few months ago, came in. He had eaten a bunch of rocks, and he was being surrendered because the owners couldn't afford the surgery. So, of course, we took him on right away, took him to the vet. He had his surgery, all the rocks removed. He's now since been adopted, and he's living a great life. Little guy in the corner there being held by his adoptive mom, came in hit by a car, broken leg. He had to have his leg amputated, but dogs don't care. They do great on 3 legs, and he's living a great life with his mom. And then the guy there with one eye, that's my foster failure. He came in with a traumatic proptosis of the eye. He had to have his eye removed, and he came home to my house to recuperate and never left. But he's a great little dog. But Saving Paws has done some amazing things. Just to give you some numbers, this is pretty cool. Since 2019, they've raised over $70,000 for medical expenses. There's been over 110 dogs and cats that has received medical. And some of these bills are large. We're talking $2,000 to $3,000. So it's pretty amazing what they've done. And these are situations we couldn't have done without them. So we're pretty excited about what they do for us. Coming soon, they're actually working on a thrift store. They're going to be opening a thrift store as a new way to generate revenue, because we get so many donations. People are used to us doing the garage sale. We haven't done the garage sale in a few years, but they're actually going to be opening a thrift store, which will be a neat thing coming up, and of course we'll keep that on our Facebook page. So that's a little bit about us. Does anybody have any questions for me? Oh, they both raised their hand at the same time. You got to pick.
On the vaccinations, is it just the required vaccinations, or can you do vaccinations for like allergies and stuff like that?
We don't. So you're talking about like the immunotherapy? Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can't do that.
Okay.
Dermatology clinic for animals would be the place to go for that. They're in Gilbert.
In Gilbert, okay.
Yep. That hospital that they're in, I worked there. Dr. Lewis is the veterinary dermatologist there. I worked with him for 13 years. He's fantastic.
Okay.
But he can do all of that with allergies.
Great, thank you.
So first I want to thank you for everything that you guys do. I mean, you guys saved my butt years and years ago when I first started getting dogs, so it's very much appreciated, especially
thank
dog
you.
food. Mash Vet is, I'm so glad that it's the same vet that's there all these
Yes.
years too.
She's fantastic.
She's wonderful. So I do have a question. When you microchip, like when somebody comes in, I mean, when you scan for a chip, are you scanning the whole body or just the neck?
Whole body. Yeah, you have to do a whole body scan. It sounds like you've had experience in that. Those chips can migrate.
Yep.
Now, some of the newer chips, they've developed them to where they will stay put, where you put them. But some of the older chips will migrate. We've scanned dogs and found chips in the tail,
Their
down in the
legs.
leg.
Yep.
Yep. Whole body
a lot
scan.
of people don't realize that, and
Yeah.
a lot of places that scan, they don't realize to scan the whole body.
Yeah, it's surprising. There's some x-rays out there, and those would be interesting pictures of me to find for next year. I'll find one of those because it's interesting the places microchips have been found.
Well, I've been trying to volunteer with you guys. I filled out my volunteer application like 3 times already, and I haven't heard back.
On the website?
Yeah.
Oh, give me
Gotta
your
go
name
through
so
the
I can
police
look you up.
department, Yeah.
I had a gentleman today call, and he was having trouble with the website, so hopefully there's not a glitch. But give me your name afterwards, and I'll
Okay,
look
definitely.
you
Thanks.
Questions? How many animals do we see every year? Any idea?
up. I just ran the year-end stats in January. I got to think here. I want to say we were around 3,000.
The shelter is never completely Well, is the shelter ever empty, or at least something approaching empty?
There was a time when I first started, it was maybe the second year, maybe 2017. Around the holidays, we did a clear the shelter, and we emptied the shelter of all available animals, because of course there were some that were on straight hold, but we had emptied the shelter, we had a big event. I don't think we'll ever see that again. Just with the numbers, the way they're changing and the growth, we're never going to hover at that middle to low anymore. Apache Junction's just getting too big, and it's going to continue to get big, so we're staying full now.
Any others? Ms. Carroll, hold on.
So what do you do if you become completely full and there are more animals coming in than you can hold?
So we have a back area, we call it the garage, because it has a large garage door. And that's where our cat quarantine area is. We have had to set up freestanding crates in that area. We also have outside kennels that we can use. In the winter, it's okay, the weather's fine. Obviously in the summer, we can't house animals outside, it's too hot for that. We're actually in the process of looking at some options right now for some expansion. We don't have a ton of room to expand, but we're looking at some options of maybe dropping in one of those portable kennel units that could add 10 to 12 kennels into the back area that would be air conditioned, heated, that sort of thing. So we're in the early stages of looking at that. So we're prepping because the communities are coming and all these new housing developments. There's going to be a lot more dogs coming in.
Yeah, you're a lot fuller than you were a couple months ago.
Oh, absolutely. You know, we
Amazing.
can comfortably house about 60 to 70 cats, but dogs, 40 is really our upper end, and we're going to need more space than that.
And do you have a volunteer or somebody else, a staff member, that puts the information on the website?
It's mostly the staff members.
Mostly the staff.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, just because when I'm looking, when I go in physically, I see it might say owner surrendered, but it doesn't say that on the website. So I was just,
So the website that's on the ApacheJunctionAZ.gov, if you
Yeah,
go onto
that one.
that and then you click onto the animals, what that pulls from is a site called 24 Pet Connect.
okay.
And where 24 Pet Connect gets that from is our Chameleon shelter software. It's interesting, the shelter software that we and Pinal County and Maricopa County use is all the same software, and it talks to these other sites. So it automatically pulls. If an animal comes in, we put that data in, the information in, 24 Pet Connect pulls it out so that the public can see strays that have come in as well as available animals. And they can search for their animals too and put in, hey, I'm missing this type of animal. Something hits that kind of matches, they'll get a notification.
So is the Facebook page more informational than the website?
I would say the Facebook page is more fun informational, of course, because when we post them on the Facebook, well, we're posting strays, of course, we're posting them to try and identify owners. Adoptable animals, though, by the time we get them on Facebook, we've learned a little bit about them. We're talking about their likes, their dislikes, what kind of a family would be suited for them, do they need a fenced yard? The website's going to be a bit more of the sterile data, you know, male, female, spayed, neutered, age, how long has it been at the shelter?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Well, I wanted to thank you. I learned some things I wouldn't have otherwise known, but I especially wanted to commend you for staying close to the mic, and I was very easy to hear you, and I think you've been our best speaker so far. No trouble hearing, and it's just perfect.
Well, all through grade
Some-
school,
some-
I was
some-
always the one who was told to be quiet, so I guess that paid off finally.
Something to pay attention to.
Yeah.
All right, more.
Do you coordinate with other rescues?
We do. We partner with a lot of rescues in the valley. We have probably a dozen rescues that work closely with us on a consistent basis. And they'll come in and help when we start to get full. They'll come in and pull some animals. And it goes both ways. You know, we've assisted Pinal County when they've gotten full and we have a little space. Unfortunately, Pinal County is always full now. When they need a little help, we'll take 5 dogs in and kind of free them up a couple kennel spaces. We've helped Gila County Animal Control a couple of times. So we're there to make a friend. You know, that's what it is. You've got to partner with everybody. We're all in this together.
What about like local?
Oh, absolutely. Some that you might be familiar with would be Friends for Life in Gilbert. They work with us a lot. They're probably down there once a week taken a look, who can we pull, how can we help you, are you guys full? Valley of the Sun Rescue, she takes a lot of the big dogs. We love her. She loves the pit bulls, and she'll come in and pull one or two when we start to get full. So we have a lot of great rescue partners.
Okay. Any more questions? Lori, any last pitches of things? People can still donate whenever they want.
Anytime. Yep.
Lori Erlinson from Animal Control, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Test, test. Can you hear me? All right.
All right, here we go.
So while he gets that set up, I'm excited to be here tonight with you guys. I'm looking forward to getting to know you guys a little bit better, and hopefully I can you can get to know me, and especially get to know our department here in Apache Junction, the police department, a lot better. For those that don't know me, my name is Mike Pooley. I am the new chief of police. Chief Tom Kelly retired in January after many years of service here to the community. And I came from the Tempe Police Department. I was in Tempe for the past 21 years, and I was last one of the assistant chiefs in Tempe for the past several years over there. So when I saw this opportunity, I said, you know what, I live out here, and I want to be part of something that's growing and something that's already got a great foundation. And so that's what I hope to be able to explain to you guys a little bit tonight. So I have with me here Corporal Marty Harshman. He's one of our corporals that he actually oversees our media as well as getting out and doing some community events. So he's here to correct any of the errors I make. So I've been here 2 months, and I'm still learning a lot about the department. But what I can tell you is we have a department of about 116 employees. So we are the biggest department in the city, and we have a big staff. We have 75 sworn police officers and 41 professional staff, which is all of our dispatchers, records clerks, administrative staff, animal control, which a lot of people don't realize that the animal control is actually under the police department. All my years of being a police officer, and I've never had to oversee animal control. So this is new, but I love going down there. I appreciate Lori's presentation, and everything she said is spot on. It is very, very much a department that's supported in the department, or in the city, and same amongst the police department. I just went down there and they tried to convince me to get a puppy. And I took this picture of this puppy. Oh, yeah, the puppy's adorable. And I was this close, and then Lori sent me a message later that day and said, puppy's gone. So, too bad. Next time. So my daughter, just a little bit about me real quick. I was with the department in Tempe for 21 years. I did all kinds of different assignments, from patrol to undercover narcotics, SWAT, investigations. I was over our traffic unit, investigations, major crimes. I was also over our canine unit. We had a mounted unit. I got to oversee different parts of the department, be involved in a lot of different things, and so I'm excited to be here, and I'll hit on a few of those things that we're going to be talking about tonight. Like I said, I live here in the area. My wife and I, we've been married 22 years. We got 4 kids. 2 kids are at ASU, And then we have a junior in high school and a 11-year-old in 6th grade. So if you see me out here at Fry's or Safeway or Walmart, feel free to say hi. I'm looking forward to meeting more people out here. So let's talk about, right now the department is broken up into 3 divisions. And we're making some changes, so what you're seeing tonight is what it is today. We are making a few changes. We know that Apache Junction is growing. It's growing quite fast, which excites me because I get to get a department that's got a solid foundation that is now going to have to start getting prepared for what's coming, just like the whole city. So our biggest division is our patrol division. This is what you see, our officers out there. They're out there in uniform, driving the police cars, and that's what everybody thinks patrol is. It also involves our SWAT team. We have a tactical team that it's an ancillary duty, but they train twice a month in firearms, different tactics, different type of entries. And they're ready for us whenever we need them. They serve our high-risk search warrants. If there's a major incident where they need to come out, they'll come out. We just were lucky enough to get a new armored vehicle. It's called the Bearcat. It's one that's been outfitted for the Apache Junction Police Department. So if you see it out there, know that's part of our SWAT team. Our patrol division is divided into, we got 6 squads right now. Our squads have about anywhere from 5 to 6 officers on each squad, and we're a 24-hour operation, 24/7, right? No days off. We always have our patrol officers out there, and the city is split into the east side and the west side right now. We're breaking it up into different beats. Actually, we're in the process to break them up into smaller areas, so we can be out there and do some more community policing. So people, when they're assigned to an area, they can get out, know the managers at different stores, different complexes, the Circle Ks, the QT. You know, that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to get out, make sure that we know who's who, where we can be at, and really be involved in the community. So part of that is our DARE program, and actually Corporal Harshman oversees our DARE program. I believe we are the only city that still has the DARE program in Arizona. It's some of you may remember when you were little and there was a DARE officer. I remember, and it is an impactful program. We have an officer that loves being around kids. He understands what the kids are going through. He understands the trials and how things are changing. You know, things are way different today than they were when we were youngsters. And so our DARE officer, he adjusts things to what is currently happening, whether it's vaping, whether it's fentanyl, and we'll talk a little bit about that, whether it's prescription drugs or just marijuana, the dangers of it, the what's legal, what's not legal, to keep our children safer and more educated on what is out there. Also in our patrol unit, we have a detention unit. So we have a jail right here. Many of you drove by our police facility. It's the only police facility we have right now in the city, and our detention unit is right underneath on the bottom level when it's a holding facility, no more than 24 hours. And when you come in, you get booked in, processed, no more than 24 hours. If you need to be held, then you get transferred to another location, depending if it's a misdemeanor or a felony. So part of our patrol division also has what's called our HOT team, our homeless outreach. Now, if you don't have this phone number in your phone, I encourage you to put it in there. If you see somewhere in the city of Apache Junction something that needs to be addressed, a lot of times people are like, I don't know who to call. Do I call the city? Do I call 911? Do I call if it's a homeless issue? This is a number that we just started within the last month, where if there's a concern about something going on when it deals with the homeless, if you call that number, leave a message. It's monitored almost not 24/7, but one of our on-duty officers has the phone and the line to it that they check the message, or they may even answer it directly. But our officers work very closely with our park rangers, and I think you may have heard about the park ranger program already, but our officers are out there, and we are surrounded by state and federal land. So a lot of times, we work in conjunction with them, with the state and federal partners, to help with the homeless population. Now, some of the stuff we do is we really work with a lot of the different organizations here within the city of Apache Junction. And I'm so impressed with how many organizations are out here that offer assistance. The first thing we do is we always try to help people out where we can. Now, the last thing we do is we always will enforce criminal behavior. A lot of times, homeless gets put on the police department when it's really more of a social type issue. Now, if there's a crime being committed, absolutely. The police department gets involved and we address the criminal behavior. But being homeless is not a crime. So that's one of the things with our homeless outreach team, or the HOT team. They go out and they really educate the public and they work with the homeless population. All right, special events. This is what I love. I was over our special events for many years, whether it was an event that had a couple hundred people or an event that brought 100,000 people. And every event is different. Here in Apache Junction, we have a few big events, but I can tell you, as more people start to come out here, and more people start to move out here, and they start to realize this beautiful area, the base of the Superstition Mountains, who would not want to come out here? And it is going to attract more events. Now, we've changed some of the way we do special events and the way we plan for it just in the last couple months since I've been out here. We've always done a great job, but safety is a priority. We want people to come here knowing that, hey, we have a great special event and not have to worry about their safety. At the Lost Dutchman Marathon, our officers were out there at about 4 o'clock in the morning, and they didn't get home. They didn't leave till late that evening. And all of that goes unnoticed. Without a word, a lot of people, and I remember I was at the briefing, and I told our officers, many of the people that walk by you today or that run by you will never remember your face. They'll never remember your name, but they will remember the feeling they had here. And that's what we want. We want people to remember the feeling of Apache Junction. You know, as we look at things that have happened across the country in special events, it's scary. There's some scary things that happen. We're a department that we're getting prepared for these major events that are going to start coming this way. We're a department that's using intelligence. We work close with the FBI, with the different intelligence centers, to make sure we're always monitoring if there's something that's a potential danger. These are things that we don't want you guys to have to worry about. But in the back of our minds, or actually the front of our minds, is what is the worst case scenario of something that can happen. So there is an entire process. When somebody comes to the city, they actually go to Al Bravo and they say, hey, we want to have this event. And then it trickles down and it gets to us and we start evaluating it. So we're actually in the process of doing a few things, and I think this video might be loud. Let's see. Just play. This last event I went to was this marathon, and I was shocked how many people were there. It was great. I'm going to run in it next year. Probably not the full marathon or the half marathon, but I think there's a 2 mile, right? Or yeah, I might do that one. So as you can see, it's an event that a lot of people come to. It was fun to be out there. We have the parade. We have Lost Dutchman Days. We have Earth Day event coming up. We were just talking about that today. And these are events that people don't realize that the police department is there in the background trying to make sure things are happening and that everybody's safe. So that's something else that's housed out of our patrol division. So our next division is our support services. This is probably one of the the least talked about, the least doesn't get any glory from all the stuff in the police department, but it is what makes the police department run. Without the support services division, our patrol division we'd be lost. Our criminal investigations division would be in turmoil. So inside our support services is our communications, our dispatch. So our 911 call center, we have it here again at the police station. We take calls for service. Any one time you call 911, whether it's a landline or whether it's a cell phone, it knows that, hey, go to the Apache Junction Police Department. We get it, and the call gets, our first initial responders is that 911 operator. They always try to find out whether this needs to be something that the police department goes to or not. They are unbelievable. Our records staff, we have a records division, or a records unit that they deal with all the police reports that come in. And I'll give you the numbers on those here in just a minute. And then obviously our paws and claws. We have our property and evidence and victim services. So again, this is an area that is extremely important for the police department. The other division we have is our criminal investigations. This is what a lot of people, when they become a police officer, they say, oh, I want to be a homicide detective. I want to go and, be a sexual assault investigator and be an expert in child crimes. All of those things we have here at the Apache Junction Police Department. Today, we made a good arrest. It was a drug dealer that this guy had been selling drugs, and when we got his phone, we saw a whole bunch of child pornography on it. Is it out there? Absolutely, it is. It's horrible. And our detectives dig into these things, and even though we were looking at this one incident completely different than what we thought it was going to be, we were able to find this person that was involved in that. So our detectives, this is what they do. They process scenes. If there's a major crime where it's a homicide, a stabbing, a shooting, a robbery, a sexual assault, any of those types of crimes, our detectives, they get specialized training in these types of crimes, even the way they process a scene. A lot of people have seen movies like or TV shows like CSI or whatever show, and they make it look like it's super fast to do, right? You go in there and they get a fingerprint, get DNA, and all of a sudden the computer picture pops up, and then they go out and arrest the guy within 30 minutes. It's unbelievable. That is not the way it works, unfortunately. But technology is coming up to where a lot of times we have some pretty cool stuff out there that can help us find some bad guys very, very quick. We are here at the Apache Junction Police Department, we are bringing a lot of that technology to the department. Some of it's already here. One of the things is we are looking at, for our body-worn cameras, right? We have a very small percentage of our officers that have body-worn cameras. Hopefully, within the next 6 months, we're going to be getting every one of our officers body-worn cameras. Why is that important? The transparency, the accountability. A lot of times we get called on something and we can show people that, hey, that did not happen. Everything's on video right here, the way it happened. And sometimes we can show that something that the officer did maybe should have been done better. It's a training opportunity. So body-worn cameras. Also, another thing is that we talk about is the DNA. DNA is a huge deal right now. Being able to link people. Did you guys see that? I think it was in another county where they found a little girl that had been, they found her body like 50 years ago, 50 or 60 years ago, and Little Miss Nobody. Because of DNA advancements, they're able to link her up to who she was, and she was abducted when she was 6 years old, or 4 years old. The DNA right now is unbelievable. The other advancements with technology that's out there is helping us solve crimes. And hopefully in the near future, we're going to be able to be on top of all of that as well. So within our investigations unit is our detectives. We have our street crimes unit. We call them crew. They're out there doing, they drive unmarked police cars. They're usually our undercover units that are going out there and doing enforcement or doing investigations that are the secret type of investigations to get bad guys off the street. We have our crime scene techs. These are the CSI people. They come out, they process scenes, they take photos, they do everything they can to make sure that we collect all the evidence and they do it appropriately. And then our sex offender notification. This is a big deal. People want to know, hey, if there's somebody that's a sex offender in your neighborhood, we as a department want to make sure that you have access to that information as well and that it's accurate. So some of the additional programs that we have that are kind of spread out throughout the department is our school resource officers. We just got funding from a federal grant through the Apache Junction School District to get 2 SROs at Apache Junction High School and then also the junior high. So we are in the process of making sure that happens. Our Explorer program, our police explorers, when you are a young adult, I believe it's, is it 14 or 15 here? 14 years old. If you're interested in becoming a police explorer and finding out more about the police department, you can join our Explorer program. And you get a uniform, we teach you different things, you go to competitions, you help out with different special events. There's a lot of opportunities that these young adults, that these young teenagers get to have, and they interact directly with the police officers. And they see, hey, is this something I want to do? If it is, then yeah, that's great. And it may be where, no, I definitely don't want to do that. But it's a career opportunity. Prescription drug turn-in. We have these a couple times a year where you can come in and we have an area set up where you can bring in any prescription drugs. You know, I was just going through my little medicine cabinet just yesterday, and I was like, oh my gosh, I got some prescription drugs I got to get rid of. You know, every one of us, I'm sure, has something that's in our medicine cabinet from a month, a year, several years ago. Now, let me ask you this, pop question. Should we flush it down the toilet? No, you should not do that. That is a big no-no. So we provide a place that you can come and bring these prescription drugs and we'll dispose of them correctly. Bike registration, a child ID, and then car seat loaner program. Car seat loaner program is a cool deal where if you don't have little kids but you have grandkids or somebody coming to visit you, you can come to the police department, come into the lobby and say, hey, can I get a car seat? And we have car seats that we'll loan you. You take them, and then when your grandkids leave, you can bring them back. And it's a cool program that we have here. So definitely something to take advantage of. So we have our volunteer program. In our volunteer program, we had something called our auxiliary patrol. But within that, you could work. It doesn't mean you have to do the auxiliary or actually out in patrol. We have opportunities if you want to be a volunteer to help in our criminal investigations. We have opportunities to volunteer in our at Paws and Claws, opportunities to help with administrative work. So we have a lot of people, especially in the winter, our winter visitors that come out and they say, we want to help out during these times, and they are incredible. So we appreciate them. The other one is our police reserve program. I'll hit on real quick. A lot of our officers are officers that retire. They still want to keep their certification, and we need the help. And I'll get into our staffing here in just a minute, but we need the help, and so they can come. Some police departments have a reserve program, some don't. The Apache Junction Police Department does, and I'm really happy about that. So let's look at our calls for service. Last year, we took 37,000 calls, just over 37,000 calls for service in our communications center. Out of those, there was 212 drug crime reports, 635 property crimes, and 544 person crimes. So drug crimes, it could be, hey, this guy's smoking marijuana, and he doesn't have a prescription, or hey, there's somebody that's got drugs on them. Those are the drug calls and that we took, and we actually took a report. For property crimes, that's probably our biggest one. That is the biggest thing that may affect you. If you've ever had somebody break into your car, raise your hand. Just the 4 people that work here. So you guys are doing everything right, because I've had my car broken into. How about a bike stolen? Anybody had a bike stolen? Okay, I'll tell you, when you have something like that, it is personal. Now, to be honest with you, will we ever find the person that stole the bike? It's not very likely, unfortunately. Could we find the bike? Possibly. So what's a good way if you have a nice bike that you want back, what's something that you should do? Serial number. Who knows their serial number on their bike? Nobody probably, right? Exactly. And so it's those are the type of things that we go out and we try to teach these things to people in different communities, that hey, if you want to help prevent these types of crimes, or if you want to increase the likelihood of us finding your bicycle or making an arrest, those are some things that are good to have. Person crimes is, for me, one of my most concerning things. That means somebody is physically hurting another individual. That, for me, is a huge deal. If I see these numbers go up, that means that we're doing something wrong. So for me, when I look at crime stats, I'm a big stat guy. I like to know, what does the community of Apache Junction look like? So I came from a city that the crime was really on the rise. It was. A lot of cities across the country, crime is on the rise. Violent crime is a big deal, with homicides, robberies, sexual assaults, aggravated assaults. These are things that are happening. I looked at Apache Junction, and I was so impressed with the crime rate. It's very low for where we are and who we are. But I don't attribute that just to the police department. I don't. I attribute that to all of you. The people that live here in this community look out for one another. You guys really do what you can to support your neighbors. And crime is not a huge thing right now. Now, as more people start to come out here and people move out here, is it going to increase? I don't know. But we want to make sure it doesn't. So people always ask us, hey, so how can we support the police department? What can we do to support you guys? There's opportunities to volunteer. I talked a little bit about that. I want you to stay informed on your police department. This police department is your police department. If you're informed on what's going on decisions that are being made, on the way we're doing patrols, community events, you guys can be involved in these things. You know, one of the things that I'm hoping to do is to come up with a Chiefs Advisory Board, where I have a group of residents that live in the Apache Junction Police Department that we meet maybe on a quarterly basis, and we say, I tell you, hey, this is what's going on in the police department. Give me your feedback. Tell me what you're hearing. Because if you're informed, you can be involved and you can help make these changes. This police department is here to serve every one of you. The other thing is this is probably one of our most important things, is help us recruit. Policing has taken an attack in the past couple of years across the country. A lot of people don't want to be police officers anymore. They can go and work in the private sector, make way more money, and they don't have to deal with a lot of the things that our officers have to deal with. Every department, I had a meeting today with all the different police chiefs in the valley, from Buckeye to Peoria and everywhere in between, all the way out here to Apache Junction. And every police department, Mesa, Scottsdale, Tempe, Chandler, every one of them are understaffed. And every one of us is doing everything we can to recruit. Now, there's all these ideas that, you know, some police departments are paying incentives up to $10,000 signing bonus to be a police officer. We don't have that ability, but we have all of you. If you have somebody that wants to be a part of the Apache Junction Police Department, I guarantee there's a position for them. We need dispatchers. We need people that want to answer the telephone and answer 911. We need animal control, admin staff. We need records clerks. And these are positions that are extremely important to make sure the police department happens. So that's one of the biggest things I guess I will say to you is if there is something that you think you can do to help get the word out about the Apache Junction Police Department, man, I'm all ears. I want to be a part of that, and I want you to know you have our support. So right now, when I say I want you to stay connected. And right now we have a Twitter and a Facebook page. We're going to be eventually having Nextdoor and Instagram to try to connect with different people in the community. I want to get up to Lori's status at Paws and Claws, man. They dominate everything. But we don't have that cute of officers and cute of staff, I guess. They get these cute little puppies that you can't compete with that, right? So last couple things. We have a couple of events. One of them is we're going to be playing the fire department in softball game. They challenged us. I was like, guys, you guys are going to lose. So I just wanted to share this with you. It's going to happen on April 2nd. It's not this Saturday. I believe it's next Saturday. And we're going to be playing the fire department. So we love our fire department out here. They are great to work with, great working relationship, and we're excited to be there. So any questions? I try to go through this very quick.
So 2 questions. Does the hot team, do they take volunteers?
Right now, no.
Okay.
But if you volunteer for another, but that's a good question. That's something maybe we could actually do.
Because I've been trying to actually find out more about what they do.
Okay.
Who's in charge? Is that Sergeant Pennington?
It is,
Okay.
yes. Yes,
So I can
Sergeant
always contact
Pennington
him.
is our best contact. And, we do not currently have volunteers right now for that.
And the second part of that is same thing how I've been trying to do Paws and Claws. I have done the volunteer application like 3 times for like the auxiliary patrol, because you have that one application
Yeah.
and you got to check it, and I haven't had any response for anything.
Okay, I'll make sure that we get your name just like Lori and seeing where we're at with that.
Thanks. Do what?
All right, questions?
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. I was so impressed. I was at the last council meeting where you all came and honored one of your administrative people, I think 35 years.
Yeah?
And the group of folks that came out to support her, your officers, your administrative staff. I've worked as a volunteer in several different police departments through my job. And I've never seen that kind of support for an administrative person. I was so impressed. It almost brought me to tears because it was just absolutely fantastic. Obviously, she's a wonderful employee and a wonderful person, but for that many people, you filled the hallway.
Yeah.
It was amazing, so congrats on that.
I appreciate that. I'll tell you, every one of you know our personnel, your personnel where you work with is the most important thing. I know our job is very difficult. You know, a lot of times I get the praise. People will tell me, oh, you guys are great. Thank you, Chief. You guys. It's the men and women, even our support staff, that are really the true heroes. So thank you for that comment.
Other questions? All right, hold on. The other Carol, hold on.
So Chief, I've been curious since you've come, working with park rangers, comparing the other city you came from, where I used to live, do you find that this city works well with the park rangers, the officers and the park rangers here?
Absolutely. I'll tell you, I am so impressed with our park rangers. Hands down, probably one of the best working relationships I've seen. They support our officers support them, and it is almost like they are in sync every single day. So, absolutely.
I want to say I'm very, very impressed with you, and you did a great job. And if you have an extra business card, I wouldn't mind one.
Absolutely. Thanks. Hopefully you could hear me. That was my biggest concern. I was sweating.
More questions? Oh, there's got to be more. I know the judge has questions, but I'm going to try to stay away from him at this point. He's going to get his time. Chief, biggest challenge you think you're going to face in this new world of yours?
You know, I'd say I've been thinking about that quite a bit. The biggest challenge for me is to get the right personnel that want to help this department flourish. You know, the recruiting right now for every level, every position is extremely difficult. And I know that we need to grow our department with what's coming in the next several years.
And it is going to grow, isn't it? Ladies and gentlemen, our new police chief, Michael Pooley.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you for letting me be
Thank
here.
you so much,
Thanks,
Chief.
Al.
Marty, did you have to add anything, or did you have some stuff to give away? Sounds good. We're going to take a 5-minute break. Let's come back actually, we'll take a 7-minute break. We'll do 7:50. In the meantime, Marty has a couple of goodies that are very important, including the magnet, which is the non-emergency number for the police department, a really good number to have on your refrigerator around, because sometimes you're not quite sure what to do. Call that number. You can do that. All right, we'll be back in about 7 minutes. Everybody ready? We continue with Law and Order Night. Jeff, you were supposed to get ready with the sound effect. Never mind. All right. In addition, of course, to police and law enforcement, there is a municipal court, and our two guests tonight will likely explain a little bit of the court system if you are not familiar. Federal, state, county, municipal, justice of the peace in there too. So they will try to give you a little bit of an idea of the way the court system is handled in the state of Arizona, and of course here in the city. And we have two new folks with us tonight because just within the last year, since the last CLI, we have been able to hire a new city magistrate and our first associate judge, right? So I'm going to ask them both to come up. Who's going to go first? You're going to both come up? So Judge Douglas Osota is the former magistrate for the city of Cottonwood. He has more than 40 years of experience in law, private practice and otherwise. He's worked in a number of different places. He was also in private practice, worked as a deputy public defender, and as a city prosecutor in the City of Phoenix prosecutor's office. Got his law degree from Arizona State University, so we have to talk to him slow. And, just making sure you're paying attention. Had actually started his college career at Lady of the Lake University in San Antonio, Texas. How about that? And so he took over for our previous municipal court judge last year. And then just in the last couple of months, we've been very lucky to have this young lady with us, Associate Judge Sylvia Tarin, who has been in Chandler for the last 20 years at their municipal court in a couple of different positions, so she can talk a little bit about that. And she is fulfilling a really cool role with us here in the city of Apache Junction. So now we learn all about the courts. Judge Lasota.
Thank you. So Sylvia, you get a little bit of introduction about Sylvia. She has this kind of a hybrid position. We call it a judicial assistant. But she's in effect the court manager most of the time. But some of the time for when, say if I have to have a doctor's appointment, I can't be there, or I'm sick or in the hospital, or with these COVID days, that type of thing. We set it up and we change the city ordinance to where the judicial assistant can be not only a court staff member, but also be an associate magistrate. So if nobody else is available, we always have a judge inside the building. So if somebody has a warrant they need to get quashed, and they don't want to get arrested in the meantime, and they're smart enough to come surrender themselves to us, or people that have issues on their fine payments, or they need to get their court date extended because they're got COVID, or they have to be out of town, or whatever their issue is, and they need to get an extension, we have somebody that's always in the court for the community's convenience to be able to help assist on some of those issues. So it was great of City Council to be able to do that for us and grant us that change in the city code to allow Sylvia to be both a court manager, title as a judicial assistant, but also having the judicial duties as well. That's probably less than 10% of her overall duties, but when they're needed, it comes in handy. Like every once in a while, like the other day we had something get scheduled that wasn't supposed to be at a certain time. So one of us was able to go into the other courtroom, and then one of us was be able in the big courtroom, and we were able to get everybody handled at the same time. Sometimes that's important when we have people that need orders of protection in the middle of having other proceedings, and one of us can go into the other room and handle things with the other judge that we have, Judge McVeigh, that's with us as well. So I'm going to leave it up to Sylvia. She's going to start our presentation here, and I'm going to join in on some of the issues.
We're working together to do this tonight. But good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here. Thanks for participating in this. Oh, I need to stand. I meant to learn that from Lori, and I messed up already. Anyway, thanks for participating. This is a good program. I've done it before with Chandler, and it's amazing, and I appreciate you all being here tonight. I'm impressed by Lori. I'm impressed by Chief Pooley, and I'm happy to be here with Apache Junction. I've been impressed. I started here in January. Staff in every department is amazing to me. So and I'm getting to know this community as well, and seeing this presentations this evening has really added to that my belief here, because I feel the community. So thank you for that. So I want to start by my presentation. Just want to remind people about the three branches of government. The legislative, which is the Senate and House of Representatives, that they're responsible for drafting the laws. Now, the executive branch is in essence the governor, and the governor has to declare the laws, sign what the legislature does into laws. And so that is the executive branch, and I'll explain a little bit later about the police department being part of that executive branch of the with the governor. The final branch is judicial branch, which is the courts, which is what we're involved in. And we interpret the law. That's our job on the bench, to interpret the law and to apply the law. So laws are created in order to set standards of acceptable behavior. Most people don't view the law positively, and these are perfect reasons to remind people that don't have to fear the police, you don't have to fear the courts, as most people do. A lot of people come in and they're very nervous. There's no reason for that. The laws are set basically to set standards for behavior. If we didn't have this in place, there would be a lot of issues and problems with everybody doing anything that they wanted and everything, if you imagine that. The laws allow for justice so that there's a place for cases to be heard and for everyone to feel like they have a say, and then for someone to be there to hear them out. So that's what the court's position is. And also to keep everyone safe. A lot of people don't realize that they're grateful that they have the 911 that they can call when they need assistance. I think a lot of people, and I'll admit that I'm driving anywhere and a police gets behind me and I get nervous. Even though it doesn't matter what kind of job I've had for all these years, I get nervous and I just feel this anxiety of like, what am I doing? Am I doing anything wrong? And then people don't stop and think, especially with, as the chief alluded to, is all the problems and the negativity with the police departments. In the most recent few years, I should say, people have to be reminded, I think, sometimes that the police department are here to help and they're here for your safety. So it's not just always a negative department. So the executive branch, as I said, the governor signs the laws, which creates statutes, and the laws have to be enforced. And that's where the police department comes in. It's part of the executive branch. Now, citations are issued when someone breaks the law, and that's unfortunately the most knowledgeable part of the police department that everybody views as negative. So citations and court appearance. The citations are issued, first of all, for record purposes, notify the person what they're charged with, such as traffic violations, criminal violations, and also city code violations. So there's all kinds of, and there's actually other types of violations. For example, the city ordinance charges that people can be charged with for nuisances in yards and houses and other items like that. Weeds, excessive weeds. You don't want your neighbor's house to be overgrown and then start affect your life, your yard, anything like that. So there's lots of different reasons for people to be charged. And most importantly, the citation shows a person when they're required to appear for court. I'm gonna get into this a little bit more in a little bit about the court dates could be in the near future, typically within approximately 3 weeks from the time you're pulled over or charged. Sometimes it's within 24 hours. So the judicial branch, as I said earlier, we interpret the state laws. It's not that we get to decide what the law means. There's training involved and education involved. And you're not going to sway from extremely at all in any way with the laws. But the job of a judge is to interpret the law appropriately. We also have to protect the rights of individuals. These are granted by the state constitution. During that process is usually heard, like when there's trials and hearings involved in different types of cases, as well as charges involved against a person. So we have to hear cases and settle legal disputes, and eventually determine guilt or innocence of someone accused of violating a law. Unfortunately, we also have the duty to punish. So that's not necessarily the best part. I think that's where people are the most angry about, but unfortunately it's the law, and that's our job to follow the law. So different courts have different levels of power. Our court is a limited jurisdiction court. There is a justice court center that's a county court center that's here across the street from us. They're similar to us, but they handle a few different items as well. Different from what we do, but pretty close. We handle misdemeanor cases, civil traffic offenses. We handle a lot of cases with protective orders. That's something that we share with the court across the street if there's not a judge available. If somebody's not able to wait because there may be a trial going on and they don't have the time or interest in waiting to be heard for their protective order request. Those are sort of some of the things that we're able to share with each other and help each other out to suggest that there is a court across the street where they can assist with those types of things because of the dire necessity of the situation sometimes. Civil ordinance cases is something else that we do, and those are charges where a lot of people can resolve what the issue is and take care of the matters that have been brought to their attention, as long as they comply or bring their yard to compliance. A lot of those cases are dropped. It's one thing that we see very often, that people forget and they procrastinate and they show up, and we're required to provide more time, which we prefer to do. Is get it taken care of. That's the whole point of the civil ordinance violations. So it's civil traffic violations. You're required to appear at that time. A lot of times your charges can be taken care of in advance. There's no reason for every single person that gets pulled over to see a judge. A lot of the things can be taken care of by one, you could plead responsible and pay a fine. A second option would be to request a hearing. If you want to be heard, you feel and believe that's not what happened, that's not why it happened. A lot of people want to come in and explain situations to the court at a hearing, and unfortunately that's not the time or place. We have to summon the police officer to be here so that both parties can be heard at the same time. Another issue that I see all the time is that people believe that I had an emergency, I was racing, I didn't feel good. And they have just a lot of valid reasons sometimes in their mind that they feel that this is unfortunate that happened, and that I ran the red light, or I didn't pause, or I made changed lanes not carefully. So there's lots of things that happen when things are happening, and I always remind people that's not an excuse. You're trying to get yourself, for example, to the hospital, you're trying to get to your family member who's not, something has happened. I always tell people, do you want to arrive? So that's probably the best time, the most important time for people to be careful and be more aware. And unfortunately, although we understand and have compassion that you're in a state of mind that's a lot of pressure and a lot going on that affects you, unfortunately. But I try to remind people that not only do you want to arrive and take care of your family member, take care of yourself, but you don't want to keep someone else from being able to do the same. A lot of these accidents, a lot of when people run red lights, when they're speeding, a lot of things happen. And so it's for the safety of everyone around. What you're going through, unfortunately, is not a valid reason for dismissal. And that's what people expect, is that they would like to come in and explain what's going on. But when they say, I ran the red light because I was in a hurry, because I wasn't feeling good, you've just admitted guilt. So I try to explain, you have to explain this to people so that they understand. That's one of the most difficult things that I've come across, is where people feel that, I can't believe they didn't just dismiss the charge. But that's not what we're here for. You still violated the law. And again, a reminder that that's probably not the best time. If you're not feeling good, the best thing to do is pull over, not drive recklessly. Criminal violations. Oh, I'm sorry, I want to finish. I forgot one item. For traffic violations, the third option, I moved forward in my slides before I should have. For traffic violations, everyone has a right to attend defensive driving school. And that's an option for moving violations only. If you get pulled over and you don't have your license, you cannot attend defensive driving school to get that charge dismissed. Has to be only the moving violations. And most people are concerned because they feel that I have 2 charges now and I can't get them both dismissed. But what people don't realize is that the no driver's license violation, no insurance violation, expired registration, none of those offenses affect your driving record with points like the moving violations do. And that's why they're not eligible charges for defensive driving school. But the defensive driving school is an option to get 1 charge dismissed every 12 months. So if you've completed it, it's no longer an option if you get pulled over a second time. So now I'll move on to the criminal violations. And persons charged with criminal charges have a different process. They're issued with a citation. Officers go through their processes to determine, can I just charge this person and give them a court date to appear? In other cases, they're not able to do that. Sometimes people have to be kept in custody. And if they're in custody, they're going to be seen within 24 hours. Legally, any person under arrest must be seen by a judge within 24-hour period. So that's one of the responsibilities that we have, is to be available 365 days a year. We're just every day of the year we're going to work. Weekends, there's times where we have to be in touch. And with the police department, we're working in the middle of the afternoon. It could be. There's that 24-hour legality that requires that we are just available. And so we share those responsibilities at the court. Part of that responsibility when we see someone is to explain to them the charges filed against the person. Possible charges that could be filed kind of involves a person that was provided a court date and they failed to appear. So now they technically could be charged with a failure to appear, which is a misdemeanor violation. If you've signed, you're aware of your court date, and you don't show up, that's another offense. Another way that affects you sometimes, if for possible persons that are on probation or parole, a new charge could affect them, being charged for revoking, to get their probation revoked. So there's different reasons that people have to be seen and provided this information and made aware. Right to remain silent and right to counsel. If people are not able to hire counsel, they have a right to request court-appointed counsel. That applies to not all charges. It generally applies to people that are going to have the possibility of being sentenced to jail, to serve jail. Most often it's cases like shoplifting and the DUI cases especially. So that's always an option. These are part of the rights that people are made aware of when they're seen by a judge. And we just make them aware these are part of the constitutional rights that they have. And then the final thing that we discuss and deal with is conditions of release. Even after someone's been arrested, we still have the right to detain them and keep them in custody. Lot to consider when we're weighing that option, and we also give the person an opportunity to speak on their own behalf and let us know, is there something that you want to say before I make up my mind about terms of release? A lot of times, too, we have to consider victim rights. So, again, the person that's arrested, that's seen within 24 hours of arrest, and we are available every day of the year. And the constitutional rights for due process means that we have the duty to provide the information to the defendant about the charge against this person. We have to make sure that there's proper arrest process, which is probable cause. So it's kind of like a verification that the police officers have a right to arrest someone. And then also we determine, again, that the terms of release with consideration of a possible victim. And a possible victim could be, a person personally involved with the defendant. Defendant is the person that's being charged with the charge. Victim could be employees of a business. A victim could be the city. City being someone is drunk driving and they wreck and they hit city signs in the streets. Now they've damaged property and now the city is a victim. So there's always a lot to consider when you see someone and depending on the violations and the charges that they're facing. So I want to just give you some information about excessive criminal speed. And I just want to explain that there's a mandatory fine involved, but there's a breakdown. Judge Lasota's going to go over that a little bit with you. But just so that to make people aware of how we determine the fine and what happens and what that's for.
Thank you. This gives kind of an indication of what a lot of the breakdowns are. We have all these, a lot of people think, oh, if you fine somebody $500, the city's just getting $500. Wrong, we get a fraction of that. There's like an 80-something% surcharge that the administrative office of the courts takes. There's prosecutor recovery fees, office equipment funds. There's all these different things that the state government imposes, like $4 officer equipment funds, victim rights assessments, all kinds of things that get tagged on. So out of that $500, and at the bottom it shows $520 because that includes a $20 time payment fee if you don't pay in full that day. If you look at the fourth line down, $147.94, that's most of what the city gets. And then the last total right above the $520 at the bottom is where is that? There's a court enhancement fee next to the last. There's a $20 fee that says Apache Junction Municipal Court Enhancement Fee. That's for like security things at the court, that type of thing. That's imposed by the city council of $20. So the city basically gets the $147.94 plus 20, and the rest go to all kinds of different entities and the administrative office of the courts, so the city doesn't see that much of that. Excessive criminal speed is primarily when someone's going more than 20 miles per hour over the posted speed limit. And we're having a big problem with that in this city, especially on Ironwood. You guys always see and hear the reports about all the accidents with people dying, serious accidents, rollover accidents. There's a lot of that going on. Under the statute, the court has the discretion whether or not to grant defensive driving school, and we've kind of worked out a policy that if you're more than 25 over, you're not going to get defensive driving school. It's just if you're going to go those kind of speeds, Ironwood's not an Autobahn, you're going to have to learn a lesson. They can apply to have their conviction set aside after a year if they show us they can stay out of trouble and not get these kind of offenses again. But our policy is that if you get a criminal speeding and you're more than 25 over, you're going to get a fine, you're going to have that criminal conviction, and we're getting the word spread throughout the community that this is what's happening. Now, 20 to 25 over, the prosecutor has discretion. He can look at the person's record and see whether or not he thinks that they have some priors and he doesn't want to give defensive driving school, but we've given him the leeway up to 25 miles per hour over to make it a civil traffic offense instead of criminal if he deems it appropriate after looking at the person's record. You know, a lot of people complain about that. We've had people come in here and have all kinds of excuses. Oh, it's going to affect my job. Oh, I want to run for city council. That's going to affect me. Well, I'm sorry, but when you chose to go those kind of speeds, you made the decision for yourself what's going to happen on those kind of cases. And, you know, last year when I first started here in July of last year, we were seeing cases 115, 125 miles per hour. They're running through red lights and stop signs. They're fleeing from police officers. Those, if you're going over 90 miles an hour and you're fleeing from a police officer or you're running through red lights or stop signs, the police department is going to arrest you. And when you see me, you're not just getting out. You're going to have a high bond on you. We had one person that actually told the police officers, you know, you're lucky you caught me today. Next time, you're not going to catch me. I'm going to keep doing this. Okay, that was a $25,000 bond. I kept him in. He was 3 weeks before he got his case over with. By the time he got his case over with and he had 3 weeks to reflect on things, he actually thanked me for keeping him in jail because he said he actually had some time to think about things and he realized how wrong he was and he learned a lesson from this. Now, they don't all learn lessons, but we're trying to teach people lessons by making them have to get stuck with that conviction for at least a year so that the word gets spread throughout the community. We're not seeing as many 115, 125. I think we had 130 the other day, a couple weeks ago, but that was rare. And that person had to get jail time. And that was the first time we've imposed jail time on a criminal speed just for speeding. But that person got some jail time. Anytime someone's 40 over, we have a policy that we're going to appoint a public defender, and you're going to be facing jail time. You're going 40 over, so you're going 85 in a 45. You're going to get a public defender, and odds are you're probably going to get some jail time, so you get a taste of it. So, you know, Ironwood is going to be having all this new construction going on with all those houses coming in. You know, there's going to be all those big trucks coming through there. We have all kinds of people that are in a hurry to get to work from Santan and, you know, coming up there. And they think that's the Autobahn and that they don't care what happens in Apache Junction. You know, in the meantime, we got grandmothers trying to come off of their properties and they don't have any idea someone's going 150 miles an hour. You see that car way the heck down in the horizon, you don't think anything of it. You think you got plenty of room. So I think the things that we've been doing over the past year has been cutting down those 100 plus mile an hour things, especially even over 90 mile an hour ones. And I tell everybody, I kind of lecture them when they come in too. I said, you know, if you go those kind of speeds and you hit somebody and you hurt them, you're going to prison. You kill somebody, you're going to prison for a long time. And I said, if you don't kill somebody or hurt somebody, I said, do you remember who Tiger Woods is? Most of them know. And I remind them of the time that Tiger Woods, when he was in a hurry to get to a golf tournament, and he's speeding, and he didn't negotiate a turn, he rolled that thing, he almost lost his leg out of that. And I tell them he had the $120,000 car with all the airbags in it. I said, you're not going to be so lucky. If you get in that kind of an accident, you're not going to be so lucky, and I don't want to see that happen to you. So I try to show them we care about them as well, too, because not only do we want to save other people within the community from getting hurt, we want to keep them from getting hurt, too. Anybody that wants to try to go those kind of speeds, we want to keep them from getting those kind of situations. So we've taken these things seriously. You know, we worked with the police department on establishing a policy to start with, and that's what we came up with. You know, up to 25 over, the prosecutor has discretion, and then 25 or over, you do not get to go to driving school. I don't care what your circumstances are. The only exception that I've ever made, but we haven't had to implement that here, I did it up in Cottonwood 1 or 2 times, is if it's a legitimate emergency where someone might be dying if they don't get you to a hospital real quick. Something like that, or you know, you got to get there for a baby that's being born or something like that, and you happen to do that, and it's a problem pregnancy, and you're worried about the baby dying, and we have some legitimate facts to establish that, we can have some exceptions if we find it's appropriate. But most of the cases, and all the cases that I've seen since I've been here, we haven't found any exceptions, and I do that same rule for everybody, and everybody comes asking for exceptions. I say I can't give an exception for you, because if I give an exception for you, I'm going to have an exception for everybody, and then there is no rule, and then everybody just gets to do whatever they want on the speed. We're not letting that happen. We're trying to help this city cut down those speeds, cut down the deaths and accidents.
Thank you. And I also wanted to share that these policies are in place in order to be fair, which is a huge responsibility for us. I've had people come in and give me excuses, and most recently I had someone whose only concern was their job and how it would affect this person. Was in the medical field, and this person believed that I was running late to get to work, and it's important. I can't afford to be late to this job. And I had to explain the importance of, first of all, in the medical field, do you not handle all the accidents and the people that come in based on all of this reckless driving and DUIs and excessive speeds and running red lights? And I explained I would probably want to hold you to a higher standard, but mostly it's to be fair and to treat everybody equally and to be just. We all have reasons for what we do, right? We come up with all kinds of reasons and excuses why I deserve a break this time. But like Judge just said, once we give someone a break, why doesn't everybody else deserve a break? Wouldn't you want to come into court and get the same break that somebody else did because you feel that your reason is valid? And that's what everybody believes. When you come in, you feel that your reason is a good reason and you deserve a break. But we're just not permitted to give everybody breaks. We have to follow the law.
Okay, orders of protection are something we grant quite often. We see these people coming in all the time for either an order of protection or injunction against harassment. Order of protection has to be when you assault or do criminal damage or trespass or do some different types of acts against someone that's either that you were married to before, that you're married to now, that you used to live with before, close relations, mother, father, step-parents, things of that nature. Now the legislature's set it up to where if you do any of those kind of acts and you see a judge, you can get what's called an ex parte. That means without the other side there, order of protection. So we issue those if the person comes and they've provided us enough information that if it's valid on its face and the allegations are sufficient, that if they were proven in court, would uphold an order of protection, and we grant that because usually the person needs some immediate protection from someone that's trying to assault them or break into their house or cause problems that require these type of things being granted. If someone decides to dispute it, they can request a hearing. We have to set a hearing within so many days. Then the court will hear everything from the start and decide whether or not the order of protection gets upheld or not. Okay. So it's, if a person commits an act of domestic violence, let's go back one slide. If you've committed an act of domestic violence, and it has to be within the past period of a year, but it can go over a year from when things happened if there's good cause to exist. But most of the time, we're not going to grant things if it hasn't been within the past year. Most of the time, people are coming in for things that are happening that week, or within the past couple weeks, or within the past month. It has to be some good cause as to why we would consider something as more than a year in the past, because if something hasn't happened in the past year, that's a pretty good indicator that the person's not going to do anything to you because they haven't done anything in the past year. But sometimes there's people that are just getting out of prison, but they were pretty bad, but they get sent to prison. So the person has fear of whether or not the person's going to do things to them after they get out of prison. So those are types of circumstances where we can let an order of protection get granted for acts that occur more than a year before. Injunctions against harassment are more for things that, like you have a problem with, say, a friend, but that you haven't been living with the person, you don't have a romantic or sexual relationship with them. It might be your neighbor that you're having problems with, and it's got to be some sort of harassment, like, your neighbor's over there, and every day they're throwing F-bombs at you, or they're throwing things onto your property, or they're throwing dog poop onto your front door, or, there's a lot of different things that people do. Now, the one thing that distinguishes injunctions against harassment against orders of protection is orders of protection, one act that qualifies, you can get an order of protection. The legislature for injunctions against harassment requires that there be a series of acts. So a lot of time we have people come wanting an injunction against harassment, and they say, oh, the police told us to come to the court and get one, and we have to explain to them, well, I'm sorry, but the statute requires that there be a series of acts, and if just one thing happened today that you don't like, that may qualify, but if it's only one act, we can't grant it until there's a series of acts. And unfortunately, we have to tell them, well, I'm sorry to tell you this, but you have to have a series of acts. Well, what if they do this again? Well, we have to tell them that you can come back. If they do it again, you can come back to us. Or you can call the police and file charges against them if anything happens. But that by law, we're not allowed to issue an injunction unless there's been a series of acts. And that upsets a lot of people, but unfortunately, we have to follow the law, and that's what the legislature's required. So that's where we get a lot of people complaining about the court not being responsive to their needs, but we don't have a choice. That's what the legislature imposes on us, that there must be a series of acts that happens, except in certain circumstances where, for example, if there's one or more acts of sexual violence, if someone's raped somebody or things along those lines, or if there was a crime committed by the defendant, mostly on ones that are aggravated assault type offenses or violent felonies, aggravated felonies, serious felonies, as defined in the statutes that are set forth. In those cases, we can do it if it's only been one act, but in most other cases, it's got to be a series of acts. And that's the legislature set up the difference, and that's what we have to follow on those.
Well, I have some customer service goals that I've trying to work on to help us to be able to assist the public. As Chief Pulley, mentioned earlier, there's a shortage of hiring. It's difficult to hire people. We're currently short-staffed with two clerks at this time. One of my goals is to it's cross-training. For me, cross-training is important so that people can fill in. Different things happen. People need to be out a day. People have appointments, need a break, take a vacation day. My goal is to cross-train everyone so that we can fill in. Right now, I have 2 clerks. I have a lead senior clerk, and then I have a court compliance clerk. And everybody's pitching in. The newer staff is learning different parts of the court system, and it's for better customer service. When we have really busy dockets, we're all in. We're all in it together, and so cross-training is important. As mentioned again and again, with the annexation, we expect the growth, more cases, more charges, and more people in the court, unfortunately. And so we're trying to prepare for that as well. One of my goals is to try to re-implement what the city has done in the past, and that's to partner with other departments. We offer for fines. I usually tell people you cannot afford to miss a payment. Payments must be made monthly without fail. And we understand that certain situations don't allow people to be able to do that sometimes. So what this court does is we offer community service work. And you can do a number of hours of community service work that we will apply and give you credit for your fines. Now, this is a program that was in place a while back, and we haven't been able to do it anymore. And so we're currently trying to restart this, and we generally, without fail, always suggest, go to a food bank. I thought of you earlier. Is it Myra? We want people to go to food banks, any nonprofit, churches, Goodwill. We have the library where they accept and allow people to come in. We have people that have come in and they say, I can't do community service work, and they can't pay, and they give us, explain all the reasons why they can't do something and why they're not paying. But the library will take people and allow them to come in, and they can sit at a table and do work for the library. We're hoping that if there's places like the food bank where they can, we've suggested, go volunteer at the food bank where maybe they just want you to put things into a box, and you don't have to do the physical work of bending and walking and lifting. And there's a lot of opportunities in the community, and that's one of our goals, is help this community by offering that community service work for the fines. And so we understand not everybody can afford to make a structured monthly payment because things happen, but that's why we offer this community service work, and we're trying to expand that a little bit. We're working in conjunction with other departments. So
on community service too, You know, as Sylvia's explained, we allow that to do that if they can't afford to pay. We're one of the few courts that pretty much allow community service for any type of case if you can't afford to pay. We know we can't get blood out of a stone. We're not going to put you in jail because you're poor and you can't afford to pay a fine. But if you're not working, you don't have a job, you can still do community service. And we'll let you do it at any type of a nonprofit. Any type of nonprofit that you find. We give suggestions of things like Salvation Army, Goodwill, food banks, things like that. For a while, we were sending to the Genesis homeless shelter, but they were getting kind of overwhelmed, so they've asked us to cut back a little bit on that. But we tell them churches. We get a lot of people who are disabled, and you know, like we had one person who could only work for like 20 minutes at a time. So okay, we let him clean up in the courtroom. He'd work for 20 minutes. He'd relax for 30 minutes. He'd work for 20 minutes. We let him get it done. He ended up getting his fines paid off so he could get his suspension lifted, and then he was able to go back to Colorado like he wanted to. But we cooperated and worked with him on that. Anybody else? You know, we tell them, you find any kind of community service that'll let you do things that'll accommodate your disability, we're fine with that, as long as it's any nonprofit. And there's a lot of nonprofits that work with disabled people, and they'll find things for them. So we allow them to do that. And I never put somebody in jail just because they can't pay a fine. But if they refuse to do the community service also, then they're facing some consequences if you don't do that. But I tell them you can either pay, you can do community service, you can do a combination of both, but you need to keep up with things. And the ones that do, you know, they're not finding themselves in trouble for not paying, not doing things. You know, but you know, a lot of times we get disabled people coming in saying, "Oh, I'm on disability." Well, you can do this, that, and the other thing, can't you? Yes. Okay. Well, then you can do some community service, and you know, it's at $13 an hour, so it's a fair fee for them. It used to be only like $10 an hour, but the legislature increased it as of September 29th. So now it's $13 an hour. And you know, at the library doesn't want to take just anybody. They'll take anybody with a civil offense or with a traffic offense, because we can't have, with all the kids that are there in libraries, we can't have people that have violent offenses, that type of thing. So they've agreed to take civil traffic offenses and just any kind of traffic offenses. So someone with a DUI or driving on suspended license, they're not violent types, so they're able to go there too if they want to. So the ones that complain, "Oh, I can't work out in the heat," well, you can work in an air-conditioned library during the summer. Go for that.
And another thing that I'm working on is, since I started with the court, I've heard a lot of complaints that there's issues with requesting an order of protection, filing a petition with the court for a protective order. And part of the problem is that the state required a mandated system that they implemented where all the courts utilize the same system, and it's called AZ Point. And what that does is it assists the public so that you can create a petition in the computer system and you can go to any court depending on what's convenient for you. You can go to any court to get it processed. And it's a system that we all share. It's a system that the police departments share, and we input service, it shows the police agencies that an order of protection or injunction of harassment is active and in place. And so this is a system that's necessary. We're moving away from the paper forms in order to comply with this requirement. And one thing that I've heard since I started is that people don't have the means if they don't have a computer at home. It's something that you can do on your cell phone. It's a little bit more difficult, but I've seen it done hundreds of times over the years. Does that mean everybody can do it? I certainly wouldn't want to have to look at my phone. I'm dealing with readers now that I don't need unless I need to read something, but it makes it difficult. So I understand that there's a need, and so I'm in the process of trying to obtain a computer, and we're going to set it up in the lobby so that people can show up, and when they are needing to complete this petition online, we have the computer access available to people. So those are some of the things that we're just working on. I'm trying to improve our customer service. That's what's important to me. So it's not all about just sentencing, and it's not all about just, putting down that gavel. It's about providing a service. We're here to assist people. We communicate with people all the time. Come in if you can't make a payment, communicate. If you can't show up down here, which I hear a lot, and it's understandable, write a letter. We have on our website, we offer an email where you can submit a written request directly to the court. So there's lots of options, and we're always making the effort to streamline customer service processes just to better assist the public.
Can I add one thing? On the computer for protective orders, one other thing that helps with too from the community service standpoint is sometimes people come in, they'll have their pre-prepared typed out form that they printed off the computer, but it won't have the exact language that we need to see for us to be able to grant an order of protection. Like we can't see just conclusory comments. We can't say the person harassed us. Well, they have to say how the person harassed, because we have to look at the petition and find that there's enough evidence in that petition to be able to grant that to start with. So now, without having a computer in there, we have to send them back, tell them you have to come back after you've updated things to put in the information that you need. Now, if that happens, they'll just be able to go out to the computer, type it in, make their changes, come right back in and see us. You know, we had someone today that we had to tell, that Judge McVeigh had to tell, you know, you need to fix this, and he told them why and tell them to come back tomorrow. Now we'll be able to have them come right back in and see us. They don't have to go home. And if someone's worried about somebody harassing them or assaulting them or things like that, they'll be able to get that order of protection right away instead of having to sweat it out through the night on what's going to happen if they can't get their order of protection or injunction against harassment right away. So Sylvia has been tasked by me to come up with different ways of trying to help service the community better, and this is one of the ideas that she's come up with since I've hired her. So she's been a great hire, and she's a great help to the court.
Well, thank you for your time. Does anybody have any questions?
Two? Well, it almost sounds like you could use a volunteer over there to maybe help the people with those forms, train them how to fill out those forms, and maybe they could set whatever hours they could volunteer, or either that or maybe even a minimum wage job or something to help out if there was enough hours there. And I'm just so glad to see all the list of places people can do community service, because especially after these storms, and a lot of cleanup needed. And then also, I'm glad you're going after the high rate speeders. There's just there's no need to drive that kind of speeds, you know. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. I just want to share that as the court staff, and people find it a little difficult to understand and to accept. They come in and I'm like, I can't do it. I don't know how to. I don't have a phone. I don't have a computer at home. And I understand that there's some concerns for the public being able to do things for themselves. Unfortunately, because we are required to remain neutral, we're not permitted to help. And a lot of people have a difficult time understanding that. We're not a victim advocate. There are staff that do that. The court has to remain neutral. We can't assist one person to fill out and create a petition and show them what to do and maybe help them. A lot of people want to say, well, what should I say or what should I put? Those are not things that we're permitted to do. If the opposing party came in and said, well, how do I defend myself? If I don't help that person, why would I help the petitioner? Until you have a hearing, you don't know who's being 100% truthful, who's, maybe not sharing everything. So those are things that we're not permitted to help with. It's something that we have to explain over and over again, because people just, yes, we're here to help you, but we're here to help you with the processes. Legally, we're just not permitted to help you and advocate for one side or the other. It's not legal for us to do. And so that's why I want to implement and put in this computer system. And that would be wonderful if we had people that could hang around and help people to fill out and create those forms and input their information in the system. Unfortunately, these are random things that happen. They come in at different times of day. They come in at, first thing in the morning. They come in at the end of the day, and you just never know. They're just random. It's not something. We have scheduled dockets for pretrial conferences, for first appearances. We have dockets for people to just show up when they have to deal with their case, like, oh, my court date's coming up and I haven't done this, right? I need more time. And so orders of protection or protective orders, it's not something that we can schedule or expect. You just never know.
Yeah, well,
Sure.
So, you know, they can always bring a friend to help them fill out things on the computer. Friend, relative, anybody, concerned party, anybody that they want to can help them fill it out there. The other thing we tell them to do too is there's domestic violence shelters in town. A lot of them have legal advocates. They can prepare orders of protection. They can prepare divorce petitions for them. They can prepare all kinds of things to assist them. They just can't act as their attorney in court. They can even come with them as an emotional support if they have a contested hearing. But if they need help preparing it, you know, we can suggest too sometimes that you might want to consider going to the domestic violence shelter because they will help you on the forms too. But we can't take sides, because if you had a case against me and all of a sudden you found out the court was helping me, you'd say, wait a minute, how can you can help him and you're not helping me? Helping me? We just have to stay middle in the neutral in the middle. That's why, as Sylvia explained.
And mostly when I say customer service is important to us. We have to and want to help people understand. These are the options that you have, and if they don't understand, we're happy to explain it one more time. We're happy to explain the consequences. Defensive driving school is going to get your charge dismissed. Or pleading responsible and paying this fine means it's going to affect your driving record. So we inform people and we assist them with the processes. We're just not able to assist them personally with, well, you may want to write that down, or you may want to, this is how you get into the computer to start your petition, and you have to fill out specific information. Those kinds of details we're not permitted to do. But in regards to processes, we'll gladly help explain, you know what, this is your first appearance at court, and the judge is going to talk to you about the rights that you have, the charges that is alleged against you, and we provide that type of information. The next time you come to court, that's your time to meet with the prosecutor. You're going to see what they have to offer, maybe work out a plea agreement. At some point, if you feel you need an attorney, you can talk to the judge about getting a court-appointed counsel. So those are the things that we can explain. This is what's going to happen. This is what's going to happen next time when you come. Today you can expect this to happen. And so processes, that's customer service that we are able to offer and explain any information, show them what the forms are, show them what the paperwork is or what the requirement is, like to file a petition. And so customer service for me, another important factor is scheduling people. Another thing that people don't understand is that the police officers cite and give you a court date to appear. Well, guess what? They're using that same date and time for a handful of people. And so everybody shows up saying, I'm supposed to be here too. It's 2:30, it's 3 o'clock, I haven't been seen or heard. It's because everybody is scheduled at the same time so that we can process everyone. We have to give information to everybody as a group, and then we speak to we speak to our customers individually about their specific charges. Those are things that I want to help streamline to get people in and out and to not have them waiting all afternoon, it's not expected from the public, but it's part of the system and people don't expect that. And so those are things that I'm working on, and that's why we've started to use the hearing room. We have the main courtroom next door in the court, but we have a hearing room where we're able to, hey, let's take some people out and I'll go sit on the bench in the next room. And so those are the things that I'm working on, and just to make sure that, again, staff is trained well, we're able to cross-train and fill in and pitch in. Currently the staff, they're amazing to me. We can do things with our court system where there's a clerk in the courtroom with a judge. The judges speak to the public one right after another. We have information we have to provide about cases, and then we move on. Well, the clerk needs some time to create some documents, and so it's time consuming and people are having to wait. But we have staff that's in their desks up front. They're pitching in to create paperwork. So we have a system in place where we can put in our notes and it's viewed by all staff, and everybody pitches in, and we try to get people out as best we can. So just, those are things that people don't consider about the courts. They just view us negatively as they're just giving me a fine, and you know, we are out we do care. And so we try to do whatever we can do to help.
Judge
Any other
Lasoda
questions?
and Judicial Assistant Tarin, we have one more to go, so we will say thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you all for
Thank you,
tonight.
everyone.
Thank you.
Then you have to get up early and be back across the plaza there. Okay, we will wrap up the night with our friend Fox in the back, originally from Kentucky, came to Arizona in 2018, has been with us since then, holds degrees in anthropology and philosophy. Not sure how that ended up, where you ended up. And also an MBA, you know, the MBA always helps. Has a great background, though, in parks and recreation, resource management, working with nonprofits, which has been very important because if you haven't noticed, across the street, there's like grass in that corner lot, right? I'm sure Fox will talk a little bit about that. Watch your calendars for the end of April. That's all I'm going to say. Okay, revenue development. Fox Young. You want to just use this?
Good evening, everyone. I know time is running very, very short. I am going to try and get this done as quickly as I can, so I'm just going to hit the highlights. If anybody has any further questions, Al has all my contact information. Feel free to email me, give me a call, or come into the office. I'll sit down with you and explain any of this in much more detail. All right, revenue development, we have 4 subcategories in that. The city grants, corporate partnerships, and then the city also works very closely with 2 of the nonprofits, the Friends of Apache Junction and the Apache Junction Community Development Corporation. We're going to start with grants, and to do this justice, it would really be like a 3-day weekend to hit the highlights of grants to get you started. I'm going to try and do this in about 3 minutes. Grants are additional external sources of revenue to address locally defined needs. There's different funding sources from this. This isn't an extensive list, but it's some of the main ones when you're doing grants. They come from the government or private sector. In the government, you'll have federal, state, county. You can also have city grants, but since we're the city, you know, we kind of don't get those. But if you're a nonprofit, you might be able to apply for those. From the private sector, you get a lot of grants from businesses, nonprofits, or private resources. I just did one with Republic Services, which is out here, which was a large grant for the AJCDC, so that was kind of nice to get that. The municipal grant services, it's kind of a circular thing. You have grant management, which it kind of is the overarching thing of the entire grant process. Then you have research, writing, administration, and then the reconciliation. Grant management, this is the overall process and management of grants. Every grant begins and ends with grant management. The 4 categories of that, you have your research. This is kind of gathering the info that you need for the grant and can sometimes be the hardest part of getting a grant and starting the process, because a lot of the information on some of the grants these days are not readily available. So it's hard to get that. Sometimes you spend days, weeks, even longer trying to get that information and have it correct. The writing of the grant, this is kind of the art of the grant process, because you have to be very good. You have to know the grantor, the person who, or organization is going to give the grant. If you don't know them, their organization, and you don't tailor your grant specifically for that, with 1,000, 2,000, 100,000 people also writing for that grant, you're probably not going to get it, and you're just wasting your time. You have the administration, which is generally the easier part. This is distribution of funds and how those funds are spent. Sometimes there's a little conflict in there, and you have to rein some people in and say, nope, you can't spend it on that, you can't do this. But normally, if you've done your work ahead of time, that issue doesn't happen. The reconciliation, this is the end of the fourth process, and it's the follow-up. You're doing the receipts, you're writing follow-up reports for the organization. Generally, it's a 3 to 5 page. This is how we spent the money, this is what it did, this is what we accomplished, so it deals with that. Any questions on grants? Nope. All right. That went pretty quick. That wasn't too bad. Corporate partnerships. Corporate partnerships give the city extra funds that enables them to expand, especially for special events and programs that they might not otherwise be able to do or to do as well. And businesses and organizations generally help out with this. Why would anybody want to do a corporate partnership? And there's several reasons why businesses and organizations might want to do this. The first is traditional marketing is very expensive. It can cost an awful lot. It's time consuming, and you don't, especially these days, get as much return for your dollar during traditional marketing. Corporate partnership is an additional way to get your brand recognized, to get your logo out there, to get out amongst the public. It's relatively inexpensive. A lot of corporate partnerships are $250 or less, and then they go up in tiers depending upon how much involvement the organization wants to have. You get a lot of prolonged advertising. If a city's doing a project, they want it to succeed. They want as many people as possible at that event. So not only can the business or organization put out some social media, the city is also going to do that too. They're going to be on radio programs. They're going to be in newspapers, newsletters. There's going to be signs all up over the place. 4th of July is a great example of this. It's one of the largest events in the city that the city helps with and puts on. They have some great sponsors that help with that. Republic Services is probably the main one, and the event wouldn't happen without them being a corporate partner for that event. You also have like Arizona Water, SMCFD, and there are several others that are also sponsors in that. You get access to new clients during the event because you can go there, you can have a booth, you can give out materials, you can give out things they call like swag, you know, with your logo, your name on there, and it's good publicity. It shows that you care about the community and you're willing to give back to make it a better place for all the residents. Any questions on corporate partnerships? All right, nonprofits, the Apache Junction Community Development Corporation and the Friends of Apache Junction. And we will start with the Friends. The Friends exist to help the city with special events and programs. They help with areas like Paws and Claws, the care center, which is run by the police department. Sometimes when they're doing their budget, they can't budget for things that they don't know is going to happen. A great example was last year they had to intake a goat that was running the streets, and nobody knew who the goat belonged to. They took the goat in, and it proceeded to tear up several of the cages. Pretty much every cage it got near, nope, gone. That is not an expense they were expecting, so it didn't fall within their budget. They got with and contacted the Friends of Apache Junction, who has funds set aside for that when donations come in, and they're like, yep, do it, get it fixed, we'll pay the bill for that. And I'll get into a little more of that later. The Friends is an all-volunteer board. They give back 97% of all the money that comes in, which is amazing. Many nonprofits don't even come anywhere near that amount. And some, you know, for their administration fees, you'll hear it, you can go online 30, 40, 50% or higher in some instances. So great organization that gives almost everything back to the community. The remaining 3% pays insurance, office supplies, postage, things of that nature. Any of that money that's left, which is generally about, 0.1, 0.2%, they'll send that back into the community too, so they don't just keep it and hoard that money. 2021, They received $90,000 in donations and grants that they intook. They provided $50,000 for events, programs, and improvements. 2020 was kind of a weird, with everything going on, weird year. So the remainder, what happens if there's anything left, it's held in a specific account for that project or program only, and the funds can't be spent for anything else. So if money comes into Paws and Claws, then they can't use it for, say, the 4th of July event. It has to be spent with issues for Paws and Claws. And there's a board of directors that ensures and votes to approve or deny any expenditure that comes in. Where does the revenue come from? Donations, fundraisers, grants. They're getting ready to do their golf tournament in May 14th, I think it is. If anybody's interested, and the friends that signed up for the golf tournament, making a donation, they have a website. It is friendsofapache.junction.org. You can just type in Friends of Apache Junction. It'll pop right up. They're also, if anybody's interested in serving the community, they're looking for board members. So if anybody's interested in being a board member, you can go there, fill out the form online. Any questions on the Friends? The Apache Junction Community Development Corporation, they have a lot of projects that are ongoing, but 3 of their main ones that I'll talk about here is first is the Focal Point, second is the Make a Difference Day, and the third is the Community Revitalization Project. And with all these, with the Friends, with the AJCDC, they coordinate with the city for all these projects and events. The Focal Point is right between Flatiron Park and Fry's, where the roads come together there at Apache Trail. You can buy a commemorative brick down there. There's an area for the general public. There's one for veterans or for pets. You can order one of the bricks online, and it generally takes about 4 weeks for the entire process. You order the brick, then they have to send it out to get it engraved. Then it comes back, and then Parks and Recreation will go down there and install the brick. And that project's been going on. The AJCDC just got involved really with it last year, but it's been around, what, a decade maybe? And so they're seeing some progress with that. They also organized the Make a Difference Day. I believe this year it's October 8th. Second Saturday, so I think that's the 8th. What they do is they get a group of volunteers. Last year, they had 130 volunteers that came out and did projects all around the city. Some of them are to help individuals. Others are, like, they'll do tree planting at the different parks or in the median. If you've seen the vegetation now going up in the median, that's still an ongoing project. They'll do trail work. They were up at Silly Mountain and did a lot of work up there on the Botanical Walk. And if anybody's interested in that, you can go to the Friends website. You can sign up to volunteer, get more information about the Make a Difference Day. The Community Revitalization Project, this is the last thing I'll talk about here before I let you all get back down and get home. This is to help those who are elderly, on a fixed income, someone who might be disabled and can't get their yard cleaned up. There might be health issues, safety issues going on. There might be a city code compliance issue going on. And the city code issues, that's where they try and help the most, because a lot of the people who are in that situation don't have the resources. So that's why they kind of gear it to help people in that situation. They'll go out, they'll clean the yard, they'll help the person. Sometimes it's weeds, sometimes it's taking out brush, sometimes it's just piles of stuff that have been collected over the years. This is a before picture. That's an after picture. This is one of the smaller projects. There was one recently that was very, very large. It took about 4 months to complete, with, I think, 270 volunteers in total, and just an innumerable amount of volunteer hours to clean up the place, but they just finished and it looks fantastic. So we're able to help somebody who really needed the help and just was overwhelmed. Their website, ApacheJunctionCDC.com. They are also looking for extra board members if anybody's interested. If you want to volunteer, donate, anything like that, any of the nonprofits in AJ, get involved, learn about them, you know. I'm going to say make a donation to any one of them if you can, if it's possible. Help them out, volunteer if it's possible. Any questions? And sorry, I apologize for just rushing through this, but I know you all have to go, and Al probably has some closing comments.
All right, box Young.
I'm only 2 minutes late.
And everything on that. That was perfect. All right. Thank you all for hanging in there through those 4 presentations. That was great. We do take a little longer break here because of the way the calendar worked out. So we will not be back until April the 13th. And then the final session is April the 27th. Watch for additional communications here and there. Look on the homepage for all of our events. There's lots of fun stuff coming up here in April. Earth Day and April Fool's Day. And like I said, maybe at the end of April, watch for something going on across the street. So everybody have a very good night. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. As always, please drive home safely. Good night.